Welcome, everyone. Today's webinar will begin shortly. Good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to today's webinar hosted by NCBA CLUSA. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We're going to be talking about the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and having a little bit of a refresher with some folks from SBA today. So we're excited about this conversation. It is sort of a short webinar. We have about a half an hour for our conversation today. So we do encourage you to, as you think of questions, definitely type them in the chat box. We'll be monitoring that throughout today's conversation, and we'll be sure to get to as many of those questions that you have at the end during our Q&A sessions. So we're gonna get right started. I'm gonna turn things over to Kate Latour. She is NCBA CLUSA's Director of Government Relations, and she is here to get us started today. Kate.
Thank you, Liz, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I am so excited to be welcoming Nicola Montagna from the Small Business Administration to provide a presentation today. The Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program has been an enormous help to so many co-ops. And so as this program is winding down, we just wanted to make sure we had one last opportunity to provide a refresher. With that, we'll welcome Nicola onto the stage or onto the webinar, and we'll turn it over to you right away to jump in with the details.
Great, thank you, Kate, and thank you, Liz. I'm going to share my screen and just kind of provide, as Kate mentioned, an overview on, or a refresher rather, on the program. So one moment, let's get that queued up. Okay, can Kate and Liz, can you see this?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, great. All right, so I wanted to first just give you an update on the program deadlines. So EIDL and Targeted EIDL Advance applications received by December 31st, so the end of this year, 2021, will continue to be processed after that date until all funds are exhausted. So as long as you complete your intake form and submit it by December 31st, then you can still be considered for an EIDL loan and a Targeted EIDL Advance. We will accept and review reconsideration and appeals requests received on or before December 31st, provided that the reconsideration or appeal is received within 6 months from the date of decline for reconsiderations and 30 days from the date of reconsideration decline for appeals. So the reconsideration is something that you can apply for if you were declined from your original application, and then the appeal happens if you're declined for multiple reconsiderations. So that's the nuance there. And this is just provided that funding is still available. If you are seeking a supplemental targeted advance, you should submit. Unfortunately, we're encouraging folks to submit your application no later than December 10th, but you can still attempt to do it if it's still in your mind. We just can't continue to process the applications after December 31st. So we're trying to get through as many as possible, but applications received close to the 31st just might not complete the full review process in time. So these are our deadlines. December 31st is the one to keep in your head. Submit that intake form so that we can continue to process your application if you are interested in seeking a COVID EIDL loan. I'm going to mute one of my chats here. So just wanted to go over, provide a refresher if you aren't already aware of the terms of the COVID EIDL loan. It has really generous terms. So it's a 3.75% interest loan with a 30-year repayment horizon and a 2-year deferment period. So you won't have to start making those payments for 2 years. and it's a really long-term loan. So it's a great option for you. And with some of the changes that we made in September to the program, it can be a really great option to consolidate some of the debt you might have been forced to take on during the pandemic. With the 30-year reduced repayment burden, 30 years with 2-year deferment, that means smaller monthly payments versus some of the alternatives on the market that you might be faced with. And you can use these funds on any normal operating expenses and working capital, and now including paying business debt. And so I'll go into that in a little more detail in just a second. And we have a decent, we know that there are some issues throughout the application process, and we've been working diligently to improve them all summer and through today. But the EIDL loan is obtained directly through the SBA. So you don't have to go through a lender to apply for this loan like you did for PPP. You can work directly with us. And so it does have an accessible application, and you can find it by going to sba.gov/EIDL. There's a big red button that you click to start your application. So these are the changes that we put into place in September. If you are not already aware of these, it might be because, you got an EIDL loan early in 2020. It was capped at $150,000 then, and you didn't think that you could get any more, and maybe you didn't revisit the program, or you haven't heard about some of the updates we made. So wanted to just reiterate these to see if it could be right for you if you haven't already applied for an increase or a new loan. So we increased the cap from $500,000 to $2 million. So you can get much larger loans to really unlock some of your capital needs. We also changed to allow for use of funds to be applied to payment and prepayment of commercial debt, and then regularly scheduled payments of federal debt. So that means you can use these funds for if you're still making payments on your PPP loans, you haven't gotten forgiveness on those. You can use them to pay off 7A loans, make regular payments on 7A loans, and then you can also use them to prepay, as I was alluding to earlier. If you had to take out some more unattractive debt throughout the pandemic to just survive, you can prepay that debt down and consolidate into this one COVID EIDL loan that has the 3.75% interest rate and longer repayment time horizon. We also are now allowing for that 24 months of deferment from loan origination for all loans. So if you already have a COVID EIDL loan, your existing loan will get that extended 24-month deferment. It's not 24 months from September 8th, but it would have been 24 months from the date that you got your loan originally. And so if you haven't yet gotten a loan, when you apply for one, if you are eligible and get approved, then you would have that full 2-year period of deferment. We've simplified the affiliation requirements. So a bit of the simplified requirement is an affiliate is a business that you control or in which you have 50% or more ownership. So we did this to kind of mirror what was done for PPP and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and got good feedback on that. It was much easier to understand for businesses. So hopefully that if that was impacting you before, that simplified definition makes it easier to understand and also to determine if you're eligible for this program. We also created an additional way to meet the size standards for businesses. If you are in a NAICS code that was more significantly impacted by the pandemic, they're listed here. And we can circulate these materials so that you can, if you aren't aware at this time of if you would fall under one of these, you can look it up after. So if you fall under one of these NAICS and you have no more than 500 employees per physical location, so per store, per building, whatever it is, and you have no more than 20 locations, you can meet that size standard eligibility criteria. You still have to be eligible in all of their facets of the program, but that is a revised size standard requirement. And then there is a $10 million limit on the maximum aggregate COVID EIDL loans to a single corporate group. And that was modified as we modified the size standard and the affiliation requirements. So these were the changes that we put into place into September and got positive feedback on, and kind of could change who is eligible to apply, and hopefully made more of y'all eligible to apply or to be able to seek a larger loan. So this is the terms, and then it also just highlights where those changes were woven in to the terms. So for your interest rate, all loans 3.75%. If you're a business, 2.75% if you're a nonprofit. A 30-year repayment period, as I mentioned, up to 24 months deferment for all loans. And then we kind of get into these breakdown by size. So if you seek a loan of $1,000 to $25,000, the minimum credit score is 570. There's no collateral or personal guarantee requirements. If you are seeking a loan that's $25,000 to $500,000, your minimum credit score requirement is 570. There is a collateral requirement for a UCC1 for loans above $25,000. And then there is a personal guarantee requirement for loans of greater than $200,000. If no owner owns greater than 20%, no individual owner owns greater than 20% of the business, as would be the case for you all, then one individual has to supply the personal guarantee, and it's not dictated who that individual has to be, but that is the next step. If you are an ESOP, there's no personal guarantee requirement, but if you're not, then there's still that one individual personal guarantee requirement. For loans of greater than $500,000 up to $2 million, there is a 625 credit score minimum, a UCC1 collateral and business real estate collateral requirement, and then that personal guarantee requirement that is the same in this category as well. And then for uses of funds across sizes, they're all the same. You can use them for normal operating expenses, things like payroll, rent, inventory, raw materials, variable costs, commercial debt, payment and prepayment, and then regularly scheduled payments on federal debt. What we also really wanted to highlight here is we've seen a number of success stories from folks who received COVID EIDL loans and used the proceeds to relieve some of the challenges that you all are facing with supply chain. So specifically, there is a woman who owned a granola business in California and cited that her COVID EIDL loan gave her the ability and the capital she needed to secure larger orders, more bulk orders, and kind of compete in that supply chain with it, when she's competing against, larger companies who might have more buying power. And so she was able to use that COVID EIDL loan to help get that supply and raw materials that she needed. And so we just wanted to highlight that because we know that is a big challenge that everyone is facing and constantly on the minds of small businesses, especially in the wake of the holiday season. So just something to keep in mind that you can use your COVID EIDL loan for things like that. Finally, wanted to just go through the resources that we have available in the process. So as I mentioned, you can go to sba.gov/EIDL to get both access to the intake portal as well as a number of resources and information that you can use when considering applying or when applying. So there's FAQs, a number of them. So if I don't answer your question here or you think of something later, you can go to that FAQ document and see if we've already answered it there. There's also a sample intake form. So the intake form is a couple pages long, I think about 2 or 3 on a website, and you can look at a sample form before you actually enter it digitally if you'd like to prepare and kind of figure out your answers before you actually head in to the portal itself. And then there's an intake checklist. So if you wanted to pull that up side by side with the intake form and use it as you fill it out, it clarifies what and why we're asking each question, and provides kind of helpful tips to as you're thinking about answering and on the documents you need and things like that. And then there is a portal checklist. So the way the COVID EIDL program works is you fill out your intake form, but you're not done there. Once you submit, then you get an invite into the COVID EIDL portal. All you have to do by December 31st is submit that intake form. And so once you're in the portal, then you're good. But in the portal is where you would then solidify your loan request amount. So that's where you upload some of your other forms, like your tax returns and things like that. And then actually that is where the whole closing process would go down if you are approved as well. So there's resources on that. There's also some resources, they're not listed on this page, but on how to accurately fill out the 4506T, which is the form that we use to get tax transcript data. And we've found that a large number of applicants have faced significant delays just because of inaccuracies when filling out the 4506T. So we have some instructions on that to make sure you get that right. And then the phone numbers that are listed here are up there as well. So we have a call center that we are adding staff to every single day as we approach this deadline. We're ramping up the bandwidth there because we know people will have more questions and there's more traffic as the deadline approaches. So you can call the number listed here to reach our call center. And we actually changed our call center support vendor in the past couple of months as well, because we got feedback that it just wasn't working before. And so we wanted to make it work better. And we think that we're seeing really great results on this as well. So if you called us before and you were less than satisfied, to say the least, we have been making some changes. And so hopefully if you call again, you will have a much better experience. You can also email the emails listed here, disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. Or if you're seeking information about targeted EIDL advance, targetedadvance@sba.gov. So this is the slides that I have for you. Want to open it up to questions.
Thank you so much for that information. It is so helpful to have the refreshers after, there's been some changes, and also folks are busy running their business. So the first questions we have are actually from a couple of the nonprofits who support our co-op. So first question, are these changes also applicable to 501c3 organizations?
Yes, so the changes that I reviewed for September are applicable to the entire program. So that would include those organizations.
Okay, the second question is a two-parter. How does a nonprofit determine how large of a loan they can apply for, and how is the level of collateral determined?
That is a great question. Can we come back to that one? I'm just gonna confirm my answer here.
Yep, absolutely. So while you're looking that up, we have a pretty specific example, so I'm going to make it a little bit more generalized. For folks who have been denied or declined in their first application and are having trouble receiving assistance in their resubmission for their appeal, what kind of recommendation, first of all, what does the resubmission process look like? And can you just go over again what that support would look like?
Yeah, so what will likely happen is you'll get your decline, and then you'll have the option to apply for reconsideration, and that'll be in your notification letter. And the process is taking about 4 weeks. You'll usually work with a loan officer to either identify what the issues were, supply supplemental documentation, or whatever is required to reconsider your application. And I believe you can do it up to 3 times. And the best way to get specific information about your reconsideration is to call the call center and have your loan application number at the ready, because you can give it to the call center agent and they can look into that for you. So I think if you have specific requests on that reconsideration process, the call center is the way to go.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you mentioned that you made some changes to the call center. So again, if that wasn't the best interaction in the past, to go ahead and give that a try again. We have, oh, my computer just did something funky. We have one comment that I think is helpful to reiterate on the 4506T form, that it's really important to use the correct title, whether that's president, managing member, et cetera. So just wanted to elevate that. And then the next question, on EIDL use, can a housing cooperative use the EIDL for the due diligence required of their refinancing process in 2022?
That's a good question. So it's, I don't know if we can interact, but if you're able to give more information, are you asking if you can use the proceeds of your COVID EIDL to kind of like hire the necessary folks and do the necessary due diligence? Is that what you're asking? Is that it?
Yep, just got a response.
Okay. So I think that's a toughie. I might have to take it away and come back. The drum that we beat is like, if it's a normal operating expense, then you should be good. But let me ask about that specifically with the team and come back to you, Kate, with the answer to send out to the folks.
Perfect. And yeah, while you're doing that, I'll reiterate, NCBA CLUSA will be sending out both the recording here as well as any questions that we don't get to, and then some of the additional information just in kind of typed out format for those who may not have the full half hour to watch the recording, just to make sure that the information is getting out there as widely as possible. So please do share with your networks and other co-ops that you work with. So I can
go back to that nonprofit one.
Perfect, go ahead.
So I can answer the first part about your formula, and I failed to mention this on the slide, so I'll also cover this for everyone. So for the formula, what it is typically is your for-profit businesses, your actual 2019 gross receipts or sales minus your actual 2019 cost of goods sold. If you started your business in 2020, you can apply. If you started through, I think, January 31st, then it is your actual 2020 gross receipts or sales minus your actual 2020 cost of goods sold. And then you multiply that by 2. And for nonprofits, it is your actual 2019 cost of operation or your actual 2020 cost of operation, and that would just times 2, and that would be your loan amount. And what happens is in the intake form, you fill out this data, and so we give you an estimated eligible loan amount, and then once you actually get into the portal, they do the review against your tax transcript data and come back and say, okay, either like, yep, it's the same as what came up on your intake form, or, here's the new amount that we've calculated you're eligible for. And then you can select up to that amount. So if you don't want the loan, the full amount that you're eligible for, you can take less, or you can take the full thing. And so that all happens inside the portal. And when you fill out the intake form, you're getting an estimate. So there's no personal guarantee requirement for nonprofits. And then as for the collateral requirement, I don't have anything in our FAQs that says differently than the UCC one. So I'm going to take that one back to the team as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And for folks who initially applied last year and declined it at that time for their EIDL Advance, they are reconsidering that option and looking to apply. Are they still eligible if they declined it previously?
So for the EIDL Advance, I think that those funds are exhausted. So I don't think that would still be an option. You could, I think, still apply for the EIDL loan. And the targeted EIDL Advance was a little different than just the regular EIDL Advance. And so I think there's different eligibility requirements there. So it's not necessarily true that you were eligible for the regular EIDL Advance and then also the targeted. So unfortunately, I don't think that you can still get the EIDL Advance if you were eligible last year. But the loan, you could still seek.
Okay, and it looks like, in fact, there was a clarification in the chat that this was referring to an EIDL loan. So
Okay, great.
it sounds like that was good. Yep. So that, I believe, are the questions I'm seeing. Let me double check here. So I'll give a last call for questions for folks who might have them. Putting them both in the Q&A section and the chat. We're checking both of those. I'm not seeing anything, so I think I'm going to wrap it up just to say thank you so much. This is, I think, so helpful. We know how hard everyone at SBA is working, how big of a task this was to take on, and continue to improve and make work for folks to the best of the abilities of the agency. So I want to thank you again for being here with us, and to the folks for joining us on the webinar. Thank you. And we will be sharing all of this information via all of our usual modes of communication, advocacy alerts, and weekly articles and social media. As always, you can get a hold of us in pretty much any way possible from our website. So with that, I think I will close out the webinar and say thank you again to Nicola.
Thank you so much. Hopefully you guys can all get the applications in by end of year, and thank you all for attending. You have a happy holidays.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.